How do you describe an elderly person? Old, weak, frail, we're inactive, we eat garbage. Because of that, we're in a pretty sick state. That really hits home as you get older.
People deteriorate when they don't have to.
Declining is a choice. As we get older, we're going to get weaker. That's just what we're accepting as the status quo. Anybody can get fit, build muscle, lose fat at any age.
To avoid that decline, what would you suggest people do?
If we want to keep it really simple, drink some more water, eat some more protein, and move your legs.
Welcome back to another episode of Rebel Weight Loss and Lifestyle. I'm your host, Cristy Code Red, author, entrepreneur, retired professional boxer, back on with IFBB Pro, Jeff Lader, the creator of the Muscle Mastery Program, the creator of the Lader Lifestyle, entrepreneur. You've got close to 8,000 successful stories of people that you've helped completely transform their lives. And it's wonderful to have you on. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me back. Excited to chat again.
We're going to be talking today about decline is a choice. Decline is a choice. And we both have been in this industry over 2 decades. We both have, Jeff's got way more experience with bodybuilding than I do. My clientele, menopausal women in their 50s and 60s. I saw an ad pop up, Jeff, from you that you were looking for menopausal women. I was like, don't you encroach on my space, Jeff, later. But we have seen this throughout our many years of doing this, and we've watched people deteriorate when they don't have to.
Yeah, I think it is just like the name of the podcast for the subject today, like declining is a choice. Mental decline, physical decline. It's something that happens with inaction. So we have to take action and do something about it if we want to change our circumstances. Because I think that's become the default. We just kind of expect that as we get older, we're going to get weaker and more frail and more sedentary. And that's just kind of what we're accepting as the status quo. But it should never have to be that way. And we can change that. And I think that's what you and I are both trying to do for people.
Now, when Christopher Columbus came over, you guys all remember when you were kids, 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. He wrote about the natives when he first met them. He wrote about clear eyes, strong, clear white teeth. He wrote about the strong backs, even in the elderly. He wrote about long, glossy, strong hair. He wrote that there were no physical deformities in their system, in their bodies. They were not hunched over. They were not overweight. Even into old age, he specifically wrote about the elders in the tribes that were strong. And so you think back on that. Of course, you know, we brought over sugar, we brought over smallpox, we brought over, you know.
We introduced all that stuff for him.
Exactly. And so back in the day, and even if you look at the Bible characters and the different, like way back in the day, the earlier man was so much stronger and so much more vital and vibrant, even into old age, even back in the day. And look at what we have turned into now.
Yeah, I think it's actually for the first time in history, the life expectancy has gone down, and we look at how sick we are as a country, and there's really no excuse for it. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can see in our food supply with what the culture is. I mean, we all are behind screens all day in some form or fashion, whether it's our phone or TV or computer screen. We're constantly looking down, watching something electronic and not as active. I mean, that has impacted us more than I think we realize. I mean, we want convenience. We have a ton of conveniences these days compared to, our parents, our grandparents and beyond. And we're starting to see the impact of that. Well, we're already seeing the impact of that. Not starting. It's well footed here. That's how everyone is living life. But when you look at like hormones, for example, like hormones are something that we naturally expect them to decline with age, which they do. After the age of 30, sex hormones start to decline, thyroid output can be impacted, but your entire endocrine system is connected. But it has a lot to do with our lifestyle. Like, how active are we on a daily basis? Are we moving very much? What are we eating? Are we giving our body the nutrients that it needs? And most of the time, the answers to those questions are no. We're inactive. We eat garbage, and because of that, we're in a pretty sick state. And especially that really hits home as you get older. And like most people that I work with are over 40, so in their 40s and 50s typically, and that's when it all starts to hit the fan. Like all these lifestyle choices and decisions that we've made for the first 40 years of our life, they start to rise to the surface in your 40s. All of a sudden, you're getting warnings from your doctor, like, "Hey, we're looking at blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication. You're looking at you might be pre-diabetic or you're already diabetic, just because of the lifestyle decisions that you've made." And that's the norm. Like you're the weird one if you're eating healthy, but that's not how it should be. It's just the societal norms that we're accustomed to at this point.
You named off several. You named off screen time. You named off the junk food that we're eating. You named off the lack of movement. You named off, just the life. What do you think, in your experience, is the biggest one of the factors that cause us to decline so rapidly when we don't need to? What do you think there's one that stands out over the others?
It would be hard to say if it's the fact that we are more sedentary or if it's the food supply. I do think that, I mean, because you look at trends with food, even restaurant serving sizes have more than doubled what they used to be. And even when you look at like the history of food in America, there's a great documentary called The Food That Built America. It's very interesting. But they talk about the introduction of snacks. Like snacks didn't used to be a part of our lifestyle. We used to just have 3 square meals a day and that was it. We didn't eat outside of it. So when they started developing these things, they wanted it to be food that could kind of tide you over, but not fill you up and like spoil your dinner, as our moms used to tell us. You don't spoil your dinner with the snacks that you're eating. But the introduction of snacks and us incorporating them into our lives, we're constantly eating. We're just eating all day. Like some people don't even have meals because they're just snacking all day. But those calories add up, and even though they may not make you feel full, they are calories, and they add up way more than we think. And that's been well documented, that we overestimate how little we eat, or underestimate how much we eat, and overestimate how much activity we're doing. And so that leaves us with a very sick and unhealthy society.
Now, with Code Red, we don't address weight problems through exercise, but I always encourage people to move. And it's so frustrating to me. My mom is 71, and so I don't even know if she's going to listen to this. She listened to my podcast for a long time, you guys, when I had my sister on, and then she kind of quit listening to it. But so I'm going to talk bad about my mom right now. So she doesn't move nearly enough, and it frustrates me. I always say, "Mom, 10,000 steps a day," and she goes, "How about 10,000 steps a week?" And she thinks it's funny, and it's not funny. I worry about her slipping and falling, and I don't worry about me at 71 slipping and falling. I don't worry about you, Jeff, at 71 slipping and falling. I worry about my mom, as she has very little muscle. She doesn't have the flexibility, and she doesn't have the ability to bounce back. She's not fighting that bone density. I don't know what her bones look like. I don't think her cardiovascular is in very good shape, and she just doesn't move very much. And it's scary.
Well, how do you typically describe an elderly person? Typically, you describe them as like old, weak, frail. That's something that you hear all the time. It's not uncommon to hear like, "Oh, grandma fell and she broke her hip," or "she's in the hospital," and then sometimes they don't make it out of there because bone density declines with age if we don't do anything about it. And that's why, I do talk about weight training a lot, just because I thoroughly believe that it's very important. Like muscle mass is very important as we age. And if you are not moving, if you live a very unhealthy life, then you're not going to have a great quality of life when you get older. It's going to really impact your ability to keep up with your grandkids, your ability to do daily things. And that's why nursing homes are the norm, instead of someone living independently or with their spouse, into their old age. Because it definitely is possible to live that way. And I'm not worried about, falling when I'm older and breaking something, because I intend to have strong bones by eating right and staying active. But that, unfortunately, is not the case for most people.
No, you see old people hunched over in a walker or in a wheelchair, and I just have a really hard time believing well, that's just, I mean, I know I've heard it a million times. Well, that's just a part of aging. That's just a part. I'm just always going to be a fat grandma. In my years of doing this, Jeff, and tell me if you found similar, I have not seen age cause somebody to not be able to lose weight or not be able to exercise or not be able to hit their goal, not be able to achieve a goal. I've never seen age hold people back. Now, yeah, I mean, can I throw up the same overhead snatch that I once could? Probably not. Things are going to change a little bit, but I've never seen age actually hinder anybody from being able to accomplish these things that they want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. I mean, anybody can get fit, anybody can build muscle, lose fat at any age. Things do naturally decline with age, and even if we do live a healthy lifestyle, you're going to see lowered, hormonal output from the thyroid, from your sex hormones, and that can impact you, and you may need to change your strategy because what maybe worked for you in your 20s isn't going to necessarily work for you later in life. So your strategy may need to change, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. It's just different. So it's a different way of getting there, but it's still, the basics still apply. And I've seen plenty of people in their 60s and 70s build a lot of muscle and get extremely fit. But it's a common misbelief, and maybe it's an excuse, really, is I think the more accurate way to describe it, that we say that to other people, we say that to ourselves, that, oh, I'm getting older and it's hard to lose weight when you're older. It's just different. It's not necessarily any harder. But we accept that as the norm, and so we just end up getting bigger and unhealthier as we age.
I don't know if you've heard of that lady named Joan. She's on Instagram, and her Instagram handle is Train with Joan, and she's in her 80s, and she is, or maybe she's in her 70s, and she lives in Tulum, Mexico. You can always see her at the famous jungle gym. I'm dying to go to Tulum. I've never been to Tulum. I want to go. It's on my list. It's at the top of my list. So Joan, in her 60s, was about 80 pounds overweight, had never exercised before, ever. And she was just a frail, gray-haired, hunched over old lady. And she started exercising, I think, at 65 years old, and completely transformed her life and her body. She is just a little bundle of muscle. It is phenomenal to watch her stuff. You guys all need to go. Have you heard of Train with Joan?
I have not. That sounds, I maybe have heard of her because of the Tulum thing sounds familiar now that you mentioned that part of it. But that's crazy that she was able to achieve that transformation that late in life. And now she's in the fitness industry and inspiring other people. I think sometimes we have to it's almost like running the 4-minute mile, we need to see, is that what it was? Was it 4 minute or 5 minute?
Yeah. Well, it was 1-6 and then 5 and then 4.
Yeah. Well, somebody had to pave the way and show other people that it's possible, right? And we have plenty of examples of that. There's nothing really that we can encounter in the fitness industry that would say like, oh, somebody hasn't done that at this point in time. But yeah, that should serve as inspiration to other people and show you like, hey, if this lady could do it, if Joan can do it, then why can't you? And you might even be younger than her. There's no reason why anybody can't achieve anything that they want with their body. I think anybody can do anything that they want. They can build a bunch of muscle. They can get really lean. They can do both. I mean, there's no reason why that's not possible.
I know my mom lost 40 pounds on Code Red in her 60s and has kept most of it off all these years later. And she always said, well, I guess I'm just going to be a fat, squishy grandma. She didn't know there was another option. And a lot of people don't know that there's another option. And like when you see someone, I even came to my mom and said, Mom, look at this lady Joan. She was like, And I thought she would get fired up. I mean, we're very, very different. She and I are opposite personalities. And so that kind of stuff fires me up. And she doesn't see that could be her. And it's frustrating to me. And same thing with my dad, So you look at screen times, Jeff, you had made a comment about screen times. Do you think that screen times are just keeping people sedentary, keeping people still, keeping people on the couch, keeping them from getting up and moving more?
Yeah, I mean, that's the physical aspect of it. I mean, and obviously it's making it so we're less active. There's also a huge mental side to that as well. I think even seeing like people like Joan, and I don't know if this is what was going on in your mom's head, but sometimes we see people like that and we're like, well, she's different or I'm different. And I know it worked for her. That doesn't mean it's going to work for me. And everybody's approach is different. We're all unique creatures and we have different, things that motivate us, different ways that our bodies respond. But we just need to, I think sometimes the belief is not there. And that comes from usually failed attempts. So failed attempts at fitness, they've tried to lose weight in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, and maybe it didn't work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're broken. It just means that the plan that they were following and the method they were trying to use was broken, or they didn't stick to it close enough. I think consistency is, really the biggest thing. But yeah, I think sometimes seeing these other people, it can serve as motivation for some people and it can be discouraging for others. And so it could have been that maybe she saw that and was like, well, that's Joan. And they're seeing her after pictures. And then sometimes you see the after pictures and you can't believe that the before picture ever existed. There's like no way she was ever like that. But I think for personal relationships, if you knew somebody like, oh, my grandma got in incredible shape and I saw that from the sidelines, and we don't see the work that goes in. We don't see what Joan did. We see where she was and we see where she is now. We don't see the in between. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves about before and after transformations that get shared over and over and over again is we don't see what happened in between. I've had so many times where I've shared a transformation and then I've had clients come to me and like, man, it looks like it was so easy for them. And they're just cruising and they're making incredible progress. How come I can't have progress like that? And I'm like, well, and I don't share their, exactly what those people went through, but everyone has their ups and downs. Everyone has self-doubt. Everyone has challenges that present themselves along the way. We just don't talk about that. We show the world our highlight reel. So yeah, that translates into what we do physically. So we see these things on our phone. I mean, most of the scrolling time that we're spending is we're not reading a book. We're looking at social media and we're comparing where we're at to where somebody else is. And we're seeing and we start to look at our circumstances and we're like, well, she probably has a bunch of time on her hands and I don't. I have to work and she probably has better hormones and better genes and I'm big boned and everyone is big in my family and with all these stories that we tell ourselves that are excuses. They really are ultimately in the end. And that's probably going to make some people mad. I mean, everyone has something that's preventing them from being their best self, but typically it's us. We are our own worst enemy.
So when you said screen time, I took it as like you just sitting around scrolling. You were like, yeah, it's actually doing things mentally to you to make you seem like you can't do it or something like that. So there's two aspects to screen time / social media that could be keeping us sedentary and fat.
Yeah, and not to take this in a different direction, but like the fact that we are behind screens and we're looking at other people's lives all the time and we're on our screens when we're at a kid's soccer game or at a family event or at work or wherever, we're not present. That's like one of the biggest problems I think in our society, especially as adults, is we're just not present. We're not living in the moment. We're watching life pass us by. I saw this really cool reel, although it was kind of scary when you see the actual facts, but they were showing this. It was basically like for how many months exist in our lifetime. And if you started from age 18, how many months you are actually not doing something other than looking at your screen, going to the bathroom or sleeping. And it's not that much. It's really not that much because of how much time we dedicate to our screens. And that, yeah, we're usually just sitting around. If you have any spare moment in time, you pick up your phone and you look at it. And I'm guilty of this too. I try to watch it. And you were talking to me about, Instagram, and that's, me not posting everything and posting as much, but for me, it's been a little bit of a New Year's resolution, kind of a goal where I need to reduce my screen time and I'm not doom scrolling and watching all these other things. I need to be present with where I'm at and nurture my people and spread my message. But I'm not going to sit there and watch other people's content that doesn't do me any good most of the time.
I'm funny. You should watch my stuff. I'm funny.
Well, I don't follow that many people, but despite even though you do that, Instagram will give you suggested people to follow, and you'll see other stuff anyway, even if you don't want to. But yeah, no, your content's great. I love it.
Putting poor Jeff on the spot here. So let's talk about hormones. Now, being working with menopausal women in their 50s and 60s, the first thing they want to say is, well, my hormones are messed up.
Yep.
My hormones are messed up. Probably their hormones are messed up. And so they want to go right to a hormone clinic, right to
Right.
an endocrinologist, right to a hormone specialist, right to it, while they're still drinking a bottle of wine a night and using that to wash down a bag of Oreo cookies. And that pisses me off when they do that, because they act like my hormones are screwed up. Oh, poor me. That's why I'm fat. No, you're fat because your diet absolutely sucks. Your sleep sucks. You're not drinking anything but Diet Coke and coffee all day long. So I really take a hard stance on this. This is a hill I'm willing to die on when it comes to hormones. Don't go see anybody until you've spent 3 to 6 months with your diet perfectly clean, you're well hydrated, and you're getting plenty of sleep with a good sleep score. Then, if you're still having hot flashes and your progesterone's in the toilet, your estrogen, you're dominant, like you're all over the place, you need some testosterone pellets, or you need to take some, that's fine. Do you kind of feel the same way, or do you think people should just go a little sooner to see a hormone person?
No, I totally agree with that. I think that sometimes you end up with a lot of false positives if you check your hormones first without making any lifestyle changes. And I really think that this should be incorporated into healthcare. Of course, they wouldn't, because that's how they make money. They make money by prescribing drugs. And there are situations where that's needed, absolutely. But if we start there and we don't make any changes in our lifestyle, for one, you're usually signing up for a lifelong sentence of taking those drugs. Like if you get on thyroid medication, you get on testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, those types of prescriptions, you're going to have a very difficult time getting off of them. Most of the time, it's a life sentence. But yeah, I think if you were to make some lifestyle changes, you could have your blood work checked right before you start, and then start making these changes in how you eat and what you do for activity, and then check them again after a few months, and you would see all of them improve. So that is something that I look at, and it's a little bit of a catch-22 with how we do that, because we do have people check their hormones initially, and then we look at them. Sometimes there's like big red flags, and there are some deficiencies where it's like, well, even if you did change some of your lifestyle habits and things like that, you would see some improvement, but you would still be deficient. The other thing about this, we have all the proof in the world right now that it's not just hormones, because of what is the most popular drug right now, the semaglutide, tirzepatide, GLP-1, all these GLP-1 agonists, right? So if you take that into consideration, this does not really affect your hormones. It does trigger the release of glucagon, which is, it can affect blood sugar a little bit, but there's no fat burning secret. There's no fat burning element necessarily in those drugs. What it essentially does is it slows down digestion and makes you not want to eat. So you could have deficient hormones. There's plenty of people that all of a sudden they lose all this weight, even though they have these hormone problems, right? And why are they losing weight on this drug, even though they have hormone problems? Because they're eating less. That's it. So if it really was hormones, but this drug worked for you, is it hormones that's holding you back? I say no, it's not. Now, reaching a deficit in order for somebody to lose weight may be more difficult because you've had some metabolic adaptation and you've experienced a decline in metabolic rate, thyroid output has declined, sex hormones have declined, and that impacts how many calories you burn on a daily basis. And your metabolic capacity may be quite low, which can happen as a result of dieting a lot. But if you are able to achieve that deficit by taking this drug because it makes you not want to eat, then it kind of disproves that excuse that, hey, it's my hormones. I talk about this a lot because hormones are a factor. They are a factor. You can't dismiss it, but typically it's because of the lifestyle that we lead. And there needs to be changes there.
In your muscle mastery program, if anybody's interested in seeing Jeff for this, it's a one-stop shop. They do have the ability to get you hormones if you need them, but Jeff's not going to take you down that road unless you have nailed all the basics. I mean, we're not going to just willy-nilly just go start taking stuff. That's always that you think that lever, when you pull that lever, is going to make more of a result than it does. Nothing's going to be stronger than your diet and your exercise program and sleeping and staying hydrated. And so you'll pull that lever if he needs to, but not unless you're nailing the basics, right, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that when somebody, I think these are some things that we don't keep in mind. So if we go to a hormone clinic, we say, "Hey, I'm tired. I can't lose weight. What can you do for me?" Of course, they're going to suggest hormone treatment. That's what they do. It's just like if you hurt your arm and you go to an orthopedic surgeon, what's he going to suggest? Surgery, because that's what he does, right? So you got to put a filter on. And so when somebody does go talk to a hormone specialist and they have a clinic and it's all about men's health, women's health, whatever the clinic is, you have to remember that they're a business. They make money off of you coming to them and continuing to see them when you prescribe their drugs, right? So we have to put that filter on. And whenever somebody does meet with a physician, I like to warn them, like, hey, just so you know, if you start testosterone, you got to stay on it. And if you start taking thyroid medication, the likelihood of you ever coming off of that is very low. And so, these are things, unfortunately, that most people in healthcare don't share with their patients. They just write the prescription. Okay, go pick it up at Walgreens and start taking it every day or every week. And then that's it for the rest of their life.
So talk to us about bone density. This is something that we are fighting as we age, and this is something that weight training directly will fight against the bone density loss. Picking up heavy objects, putting them down, putting pressure on those bones. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because what we use as the gold standard for body composition testing is a DEXA scan. And a DEXA scan initially, what it was good for, what it was designed to do was to determine bone density. And it was used for that. And what we see, I mean, for one, I think it needs to be made known that our bones only weigh about 7 or 8 pounds, like no matter how tall you are. There are some situations where it's maybe a little bit more, maybe 10, but the whole big boned excuse is not a thing because they really don't weigh that much. It's not contributing an extra 40, 50 pounds to your frame, I guarantee you. And a DEXA scan will actually point that out, and it'll say, what their bone density is, and it can measure that. But yeah, somebody that weight trains and puts resistance on, it's kind of like a muscle, like a bone responds to stress. And you're creating that stress under load when you lift weights, when you perform some form of resistance training. And that the greater the density of your bone, the more likely you are to not encounter an injury if you do fall when you're 75, walking up the stairs. These things shouldn't happen. They just do happen because nobody exercises as they get older. But those that do, you can tell a difference in how they live their life. Like they're energetic, they're in a better mood. They're not the crotchety old angry grandpa sitting on the porch in his rocking chair. They're out doing things. They're working in the yard. They're playing with their grandkids, and they can keep up with them because of the fact that, yeah, bone density is great, but they're also physically fit. And so I think that's something that just as a society, we've accepted that to be the norm, but it should not be, especially if we want to have a high quality of life.
Now, switching back over to food, I've noticed that as I've aged, I'm 48, and I cannot get away with recovering from a cheat meal or an indulgence or whatever word that's not going to trigger you people. I can't get away with that like I once could. I just can't seem to get the weight back down as quick as I could. I can't seem to get the inflammation back down as quick as I could. So as we age, have you noticed that your older clients just really need to kind of stay on the straight and narrow for longer periods of time than when we were 20 and we were in college eating pizza every night?
Well, it's funny. One of the most common questions I get when somebody starts is, are there cheat meals or can I have a cheat meal? And my response to that nearly every time is like, no, you're stocked up on cheat meals. Like you've got a lifetime worth of cheat meals that you've been doing all the way up until this point. Let's actually just fully commit. Let's go all in. Let's remove those speed bumps, those things that contribute to us going backwards. Instead, let's have forward momentum with everything that we do, and especially when you're starting. So you have a cheat meal 3 days into your program. Does that represent much commitment? And I think how you start has a lot to do with how you finish, or if you finish, because a lot of people will kind of ease their way in and not really fully commit, and they're just kind of dipping their toes in the water. Sometimes you just got to do a cannonball and go for it, and that can be abrupt. And there are different strategies for different people, for sure. But I think you have to have that commitment. And I think we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We need to develop new standards. And that's something that, in my past, I've been a little bit more lenient with how we're swapping in different types of foods and food quality, because you can get fit technically from an energy balance standpoint on fast food, but you wouldn't be as healthy as you could be, and you'd run into some health issues later on. Even though you might physically appear healthy, you may not be healthy internally. So yeah, I think they need to go all in. I don't think, and it does impact you differently as you age, for sure. I think your body just becomes less tolerant and more sensitive to these deviations in diets, and there's always more calories in there than we think there are. Like, oh, I got a chicken breast from whatever restaurant, and I guarantee you they had some oil in there. They may put a rub on there that's adding calories. You're getting a lot of hidden calories that you're just completely oblivious to. And that's why we need to look at the quality of the food that we're consuming. It's super important, but we dismiss it frequently.
One thing, ongoing training we do for our staff, our mentors, and our coaches is I'll post a picture of somebody's food that they posted in one of our groups, and I'll say how many calories are in this meal. And I want them to really take in all of the surroundings, and if they see that the food is sitting on top of an edge of a menu, and then they can kind of see, they can piece together that they're in a restaurant. This is a diner. Okay, so now that we know this is a diner, what were those eggs fried in? How much is this? How much is that? And it's always astonishing how little they estimate when it comes to eating out, and they miss little things. They miss the butters, the oils. The oils that add up. That they're so calorie dense, and the low quality ingredients. And I notice as I age, and I think that you feel the same way, that it's just better to get better quality, because I'm just not metabolizing the junk like I used to be able to, and I feel better when I eat good quality food.
Yeah, I mean, the calorie estimation, we're so off, and we underreport and we underestimate. I think that even if I like to have people track their food for a couple days before I write a program for them, because it helps me get a good idea of where they're at. And even that can modify behavior, because if they know they have to write it all down, then they may not eat the same things that they've always eaten. It may change behavior a little bit there, but even then, what everybody thinks they're eating, times it by 2. And that's usually accurate. And this is, like I said, this is well documented. We as humans, we underestimate, we underreport. We think that we're eating a lot less than we actually are, but it adds up. And it's like, well, I'm eating 1,200 calories a day and I'm not losing weight. You're probably not eating 1,200 calories. It's probably more like 2,200. And we just don't think it is, because we don't understand nutrition as well as we need to.
So I think I know this, but I think we all can probably guess what your answers are going to be. But as we do age, to avoid that decline that seems to be the norm for our society, what would you suggest people do?
Well, one of the most basic lifestyle adjustments or even nutrition adjustments anybody could do is just eat more protein. I mean, that's well documented through so many clinical studies and diet comparisons and analyses that they've done, where simply by increasing your protein intake, it results in better health, results in more muscle mass, results in less fat. And there's a variety of reasons behind that. I mean, for one, it's more satiating. Protein is the most satiating macronutrient of all of them. And we need protein. Like, if we didn't get enough protein, we'd be malnourished, and you could actually die from it. This is something that vegans encounter, where they start to experience some health issues because they're not getting enough protein. Not that you can't get it as a vegan, but it's very difficult and it's more challenging, and the protein quality is not as good. But yeah, increasing your protein intake and walking. maybe drinking some extra water. If we want to keep it really simple, drink some more water, eat some more protein, and move your legs. 10,000 steps per day may seem like a lot, but it's only that way because we're sitting on our butts all day. And that has a huge impact on our back, on our joints, on our entire like bone density, on our health, just because we're so sedentary, we're not burning any calories. I mean, you and I are standing up right now. We're standing at our desk, and I'm glad that that's becoming a more common thing where people are standing at their desk, but it's still not that common. I know a lot of people that have standing desks and they never go up; they're always down. So I think we just need to be more conscious about our daily activity, our movements, and then I don't think eating healthy is a mystery to anybody. When you're getting in the drive-thru for McDonald's, that's probably not what you should be eating, but we do it anyway. So, yeah, the changes can be very, very simple and very impactful. I think those three things.
I love those, and I love how simple it is. I know that I fly almost every week somewhere new, and I say to myself, well, however long I'm going to be sitting on the plane is how many. I always balance that out. I don't sit down before I get on the plane because I know I have to sit down on the plane. I stand up while I lean against a pole, or I'll just stand up, or I'll walk steps in the airport. I try not to sit down because I know I'm going to be forced to sit down on that plane, and sometimes for 4 hours. And it's just you really got to get out and move. It's not that hard to get in those 10,000 steps a day. I love those points, Jeff. That's awesome. So, Jeff, your muscle mastery program, I know we mention it every time you're on. I don't care. I still want to make sure people know that it's an option. What's the best way that they can discover you and your muscle mastery program, and if that's a great fit for them?
Yeah. Best way to reach me is on Instagram. It's just at Jeff Later, JeffLater. And I try to post content in there. Apparently it's not enough according to you. But
I just like your stuff. I want to see more of it.
Yeah, I do need to post more, that's for sure. But that's the best way to get in touch with me. Not everyone's a good fit, and we're not afraid to say that. But for those that are, we treat you like family. And obviously we have your best interest in mind. This is something that you and I are both really passionate about. And I think sometimes people don't see what's possible for them. And you and I have been blessed with that vision where we can see what people are capable of. And it's so much more than what people are achieving. So that's why we do what we do. We challenge people. We help them rise above what are societal norms and live a high quality of life, no matter the age.
You have an excellent retention rate with your clients. Your clients stay with you sometimes for years and years, and I've always been impressed with your retention rate.
Yeah, we have some that have been here for 10 plus years. They don't want to get rid of me yet, I guess. So it's, that accountability factor I think is huge for a lot of people because, I don't want someone to be dependent on me, but everyone can benefit from accountability with a lot of things in life, with business, with your health, even, if you have a therapist, keeping your personal development and your own mental health in check. It requires action, and you got to be proactive about it. But yeah, with retention, it's just, if they're staying happy, then they stick around.
Yeah. They don't get divorced from you.
No.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Rebel Weight Loss and Lifestyle. Decline is a choice. Stop acting like, well, this is just going to be the way that it is, guys. It doesn't have to be that way. There are so many examples out there that you can age in a much better situation than what the average American is doing. So
gracefully.
Thank you, Jeff. Guys, we'll see. What did you say? Say that again.
Saying age gracefully.
Age gracefully. I'm going to be aging with some Botox. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to be fighting it every step of the way. But my body, however, that's up to me to keep it in good shape. I can't Botox my way to a lean body. I got to do the work. I got to keep the crap out of my mouth.
Yeah.
You guys, we will see you on the next one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.